So we had started talking a little bit about your last OMO podcast that was the adhesive extravaganza. I haven't listened to it yet, but somebody sent it to me and I was like, I got to listen to that. And tell me a little bit about that.
We had Michael Dorian on, who is a fabulous maker from the Seattle area. And he gets really in-depth nerdy with things. And one of the things that we decided to seek him out as an expert for glue was, well, two things. One is he experimented in making his own hide glue. And
like with a hide, like he bought a hide, or did he actually kill the animal? How far did he take this?
Somebody else killed the animal. Okay. Apparently this was when he was in his late teens, early 20s. And he was shown how to process the hide and let it dry and then grind it up and boil it and turn it into hide glue. But more recently, he makes a good argument for glue being different from batch to batch. A lot of us in the trade use glue from Milligan and Higgins, which is sold by Bjorn Industries, or a couple of other places they sell Milligan and Higgins. Pretty much they're the only hide glue manufacturer left in the country.
So that's it. So anything that you get in the States is either coming from like old stock or Europe or something. Milligan and Higgins is
or Japan or China. But for homegrown production, it's Milligan and Higgins. And so in order to deal with the discrepancies of batch to batch, he bought 50 pounds of glue, which is a lot of glue.
It's a tremendous amount.
He figured it was a lifetime supply.
It never is. Well, it might be.
Might be.
The violins, we slop it around in guitar stuff. You guys are a little bit more
cellos and upright basses. I mean, those folks go through a lot of glue. I mean, when I work on a cello, I use significantly more glue than I do with a violin.
How big a container is 50 pounds? Is that like a bag of rice?
No, that's like what, 2 5-gallon white buckets.
Okay.
Well, I think that's about 50 pounds. I could be wrong. But it's a lot, considering we only use like maybe an ounce at a time at the most. I mean, I use like 15 to 20 grams at a time. Like I don't use a whole lot of dried glue at a crack.
Do you throw it out when you're done with it, or do you keep a glue pot going?
It depends on what I'm doing. So one of the ways you can weaken glue is by cooking it for a long time and using really old stuff. So there's a few instances where I want to have very weak glue, such as putting a fingerboard on or putting the top of a violin back on. And I will generally use glue that has been in the glue pot for days, if not weeks. It's been cooked out a lot. It's been thinned down. I've said disparaging things to it. I want it to be as weak as possible. And that glue I keep around. If it's something that I'm relying on as fresh, I will either make it fresh that day, or I have in my fridge a little jar that I'm going in with a knife and I'm cutting out little chunks and I'm melting just enough for that job. Generally, I'm using M&H 192 high clarity. There's a couple of times where I'm starting to get into Nikawa, which is a Japanese hide glue. It's their technical name for it is Amazon 3B, and it's difficult to get in the States. You either have to order it from Cremona Tools in Italy, where they're charging you cocaine prices for this stuff. It's insanely expensive, or you have to have somebody who speaks Japanese and order it from Japan. Or even a buddy of mine, how I get it, a buddy of mine has a friend that mules it from Japan. And every time he goes to Tokyo, he goes and buys a couple kilos of the stuff, brings it back.
Is that tough? That must be tough to explain at the airport, like what that is.
You know, it doesn't seem to set off the drug dogs. And I think they're okay with that as long as...
The drug dogs are probably like, that smells like my friend's butt.
Exactly. It smells like my rawhide bone. I want to...
Yeah. I got us sidetracked again. Can we go back to the 50 pounds and
Yeah,
the discrepancies between batches
yeah, yeah,
with your hide glue nerd friend really quick?
yeah. So I mean, I've even noticed this myself. Glue is just like any other tool, whether it's a chisel or a plane or what have you. You learn how to use that tool.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you've got different batches, it can be difficult to learn the open time of that glue, because glue is only really great so as long as it doesn't start to gel.
Mm-hmm.
Once it starts to gel, it really diminishes the strength that it has. Um, some glues are better at gel time than others. For instance, usually the higher the gram strength, and all that the gram strength really means is somebody, I think it was in the 19th century, his name was Bloom, discovered that if you drop a weight into a cylinder full of jellied glue, if it sank so far, that determined the gram strength of that glue.
So can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Bjorn has on, I think at one point on his site had that it was like depressing in water, like depressing the glue droplet, something like when I was a young fella and I heard 192 gram strength,
yeah.
I thought they were like pulling boards apart
No, no,
and doing some kind of like
no.
physics test.
So here's the thing with everything except the lowest of the lowest gram strengths.
Uh,
Because hide glue gets used for a lot more than gluing wood together. In fact, we're very small consumers of glue.
wood gluers
Wood
are
gluers, people,
small.
yeah, furniture makers, guitar guys, violin guys. It's a very small percentage of the people buying glue. The people that buy it the most are the paper industries,
The book people,
book
book
people,
binders.
or adhesives for envelopes.
Yeah.
It'll never go out of fashion because it's non-toxic. It works really well. You can lick it and put the envelope together and you're good.
Is that why that envelope tastes disgusting?
Oh, then you can get some stuff that's minty. Look for the
Okay.
minty stuff. It's a better
All right.
experience. Anyway, so gosh, what we're talking about, gram strength.
Yeah.
All of it is stronger than the surrounding wood. If you're using 135 gram strength glue and you make it as a strong batch where it's like a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio by weight of water to glue, it is going to be stronger than the wood that it is holding together. So if you're looking at buying glue and you see 330 gram strength and you think to yourself, it must be stronger. Well, it might be, but it's kind of, it's bringing a gun to a knife fight.
It is. I got a friend that's using high gram strength stuff, and he's like, "Yeah," and I got to water it down
Yeah.
to use it because
Because,
the open time. And I'm like, "So
yeah,
what is your gram strength after you get done watering it down?" I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. So like 192 is kind of golden. In fact, the stuff, the Nakawa stuff, I think if somebody were to I heard it was like 150 or 145, and that stuff seems crazy strong,
Yeah.
and it's got a super long open time. So it kind of pays, again, if you're going to do this for a long time, it kind of pays to have a lot of glue of something that you like. Like I've got, I think 5 or 6 pounds of glue sitting around, and that should last me with the amount that I use a pretty long time. That's the reason I bought that much. But now after the OMO episode, I'm considering
Yeah.
buying more.
It's hard to know though because I had got a batch from Bjorn, and it was really easy to work with, and
Yep.
had great open time,
Yep.
and it smelled like when you first fire up a grill, like on
Yeah.
and you haven't cleaned the grill, but it's
Uh-huh.
got all that kind of like umami stuff going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh, this stuff's great." And Bjorn, I trust him or whatever. And I
Yeah.
bought another bag, and it was completely different. It wasn't completely different, but
It's
it
just,
wasn't good as the first batch. Or
mhm,
maybe
mhm.
I'm just like living in the good old days. But yeah,
No,
like
no,
I feel like if I ever got another batch where it smelled like the unclean grill, and it had that open time, boy, I'd be tempted
yeah,
to fire off
yeah,
a big order.
yeah, yeah, sure. Uh,
Um,
And there's other types of natural adhesives too that like bone glue, which the only thing I use that for is with Scotch-Lite. Are you familiar with Scotch-Lite? Scotch-Lite, in fact, I think they dropped that name. If you look on Kramer Pigments now, it's just sold as Hollow Glass Spheres S22.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff Iris uses for doing her.
Yeah, we all use it.
Okay.
We all use it different ways, but bone glue. One of the reasons why I use bone glue and a couple of my friends use bone glue is because, like, the darn stuff just doesn't gel. It takes forever for it to gel. So that's why I keep that around. I know some people that keep around rabbit skin glue because it's more flexible, and in some applications, like we do certain types of bushings and peg boxes that can benefit from a more flexible bond, but that's something you'll rarely see. You'll see fish glue around. I think I've seen some of your people on Instagram use fish glue.
People are largely using that stuff in a way that I would say is probably going to lead to tragedy. But
yeah, cold.
Yeah, is there? Speaking of cold glues, is there any cold glue that is I mean, good for anything other than kids' craft projects, or is there?
No, for hide glue, no. So the stuff like the Titebond brown glue or the
old brown glue, old brown glue, which.
So they add in two different things to keep it liquid. One is urea, and urea on its own isn't necessarily bad. Urea will extend the open time of glue before it gels for a good while. It's something called a humectant, meaning I could be getting this wrong. I could be getting the chemistry that's completely wrong. It not only preserves the moisture inside, but it also draws moisture from the air in to help keep it liquid for a longer period of time. You can add up to, I think, 5 or 10% to your glue to give it a longer working time. However, the stuff that you buy in the bottle has like 30% urea in it.
Yeah.
And formaldehyde.
For preservation?
Yes. Now, formaldehyde and hide glue have a very interesting history. In World War II, a lot of the wooden PT boats were held together with hide glue. And you think to yourself, oh gosh, that sounds awful because hide glue is water soluble. But you fume it with formaldehyde and it becomes water insoluble.
Really?
Yes. Go ahead.
So my intel on the old brown glue, for instance, was that urea basically becomes, because of that attraction to the moisture, becomes kind of an attack vector for humidity in the future, and is what leads to it being humidity unstable.
Because they jack the stuff up in there. It's a crazy amount.
So if you were to get from a chemical supply thing your own little thing of urea, and you just kind of like gave it a little helping hand, that wouldn't be the end of the world.
No. In fact, you can buy urea from Kremer. You can buy urea from Home Finishing Enterprises or something like that. There's a couple places you can buy urea from.
We had a guy at Gruen's who would disappear into the bathroom with his hide glue, and we were a little concerned that he was peeing into his glue.
So, the YouTube videos, there's a YouTube video you can watch of some guy making his own urea. It is just not worth it. It is just not worth it. In fact, I've never felt the reason to add urea to my glue. If I need longer working time, I jack the heat up in my shop.
Yeah.
And I can get just that little more time in order to give me more time to get stuff into a complicated glue up. Again, building jigs. That's one of the reasons why I build jigs, is so I can put something together controllably.
Yeah. Test, dry clamp. And it's surprising to me what just bringing a heat lamp over to just your bench area and just having it like on in the background, boy, it really brings it up. What do you think about, like I did some experiments too, like Bjorn, the Bjorn recipe is, I think, by volume 1 to 1.4, 1.4 water. And for a while I was like jacking it up. Like I was doing like probably 1-to-1, maybe even a little stiffer. Like, is there any? Do you get more strength out of like having more glue in there? Boy, I had a bridge reglue where like it looked like it had like the bridge had like pulled some top towards it. Like it was so I could have
So
been.
I don't know if it's again, if you make up any glue to a reasonable ratio, it's still stronger than the wood that's around it.
Mm,
You have to be able to work with it. It gets to the point where it's so thick it just doesn't run.
yeah.
I know my glue is good if I put the brush in the glue and it, a nice bead runs off of it. I know that's at a consistency where I can work with it. I don't think there's any advantage besides maybe it not, or I should say the big disadvantage would be it might not necessarily get into all the nooks and crannies. If it's too thick, it might not flow and you might end up with a starved joint. Something we do a lot of, particularly if there's end grain involved, is a lot of glue sizing. And that makes a huge difference.
I was going to ask you about that. Like I size a lot when I do bridges, just because we're dealing with like, I mean, in guitars, you got a lot of run out, you got a lot of, a lot of, in a lot of situations, you have a lot of missing material that doesn't make any sense. If you just like glue spruce back down and glue, spruce and then glue a bridge to it, it doesn't, it almost, you'd be better off with the void in my estimation. But so tell me a little bit about glue sizing and how you go about it.
Well, it depends. Gosh. So pretty much the only thing I glue size anymore are neck roots, because that's a lot of end grain that you're dealing with. And I glue size it by, after that neck root is as flat as I can possibly make it, I then go and I start coating it with glue and wiping off excess until it will no longer suck up glue. And at that point, I generally have to do a small amount of reflattening in order so the joint is good.
Because it jumps a little bit with the humidity from the glue.
Yes, like because you're putting glue as it dries, high glue as it dries constricts. That's so you can break glass with hide glue.
Yeah.
So what it does with wood is it will, kind of take, this is really crude estimation, but that end grain will go from this to just a little bit, and you've got to flatten that back out again. So that's how I glue size, and that's pretty much the only thing I glue size. I used to glue size patches. However, since I started doing stuff with the CNC work, and since a lot of people who I have a lot of respect for, they weren't sizing traditional patches anyway, because let's see, they're putting a lot of glue into a confined area that's got a moisture barrier, because when you're gluing a patch in, you're doing it with a cast that's lined with cellophane, and so the odds of that area being starved drastic diminishly. You know what I mean? The odds of it being a starved joint go down.
Yeah. I like on the bridges, I mean, I always felt like you're just making, like when I run, thinner than normal hide glue in there, I'm just basically creating kind of tendrils of glue, because when it maybe I'm I can't see inside of a glue joint, so I don't know, it's just kind of my own speculation.
I don't know if it's necessarily tendril. So glue cures by, this is going to be again really crude. I'd recommend listening to the OMO episode so you can hear Michael's explanation of it a little bit better. The form of collagen, it changes from one state of its being to another, and it's there is an electrochemical attraction that's happening. So hide glue doesn't need a roughed up surface. In fact, it does better with a not rough surface,
because you want all of that surface area like available for the electrons, right?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why you can glue glass together.
Yeah.
And you can break glass with hide glue.
So flat surface.
Flat surfaces are great, or surfaces that are, I'll say, tightly fitting. There's not a whole lot of variance.
Mm.
So well fit patches, that sort of thing.
Cool. Are you heating your parts before you go, or is it just like kind of a general, you take a hair dryer and heat stuff up? I find that to be like, I don't know.
It really depends on what I'm gluing. Something that maybe is a little more complicated, I'll heat up a little bit, but otherwise I don't, just because I've generally rehearsed something to the point where it's just put on glue and go.
Yeah.
I have had some older, wiser people tell me that using a blow dryer will dehydrate the wood. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. It seemed like overkill to me to worry about that. So I think it's fine if you do it. It's fine if you don't do it. I think a lot more depends on the amount of time that you have to work with.
Yeah.
If you can avoid gelling, that's your goal.
Yeah. Yeah. The probably the dry clamping rehearsal is probably the most important thing of it, and just getting a watch on there, and
have all your clamps handy, have everything marked, know how tight to take something, because this gets really important when you're dealing with very thin wood, and high glue is you're essentially putting hot water on wood, and it's super easy to cause distortion. Maybe sometimes in the past I might have caused a soundpost patch to print through to the outside. Maybe, I'm not saying I did that or not, but
I've never heard of it, so let's pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, or bass bars. For us, putting in bass bars when the top gets thin, the thing to do then is to clean it off as dry as possible.